Hi there, and welcome to Fresh Start Conversations. Today, it's an interesting one. You know the complaints we always have about boy child, boy child. We are going to look at that, but you're doing it differently. We are looking at fatherhood and father wounds. And this is the cause of a lot of pain that adult men go through and even our young sons are going through. If this interests you, come on, let's talk about it. Hi, and welcome to Fresh Start Conversation. Today, we have a great conversation, and I think it's very important. We are going to talk about father wounds. We are going to talk about the journey of masculinity and how to raise our sons so that they can be the men that God intended them to be. And with us to talk about this is Keith. Allow him to introduce himself. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you so much.
So tell us your name and what you do.
So my name is Keith. I mentor young men and also serve in an initiative called Stars Mentors, where we've specialized in mentoring young people and children. And our motto and desire is helping young people to become the best version of themselves. So mentorship is our thing. Yeah.
And that is why I actually invited you here.
Thank you.
Because your day-to-day work involves interaction with young people. And as you interact with young people, you can see the challenges that they go through. As a society, we have been complaining about the boy child this, the boy child this, the boy child this. But let's demystify the journey of being a man or just the boyhood journey.
Okay.
Yes. What are some of the challenges that young boys are going through, especially the ones that you mentor? What are the challenges they're going through?
I'd say that many, but I'll narrow them down into not understanding how a man evolves and how he transitions from stage to stage. Because I believe when you try to solve a problem with the same mind that created it, it will always recur. It's like dealing with symptoms and not working on the disease. So the disease being not understanding how, one of the diseases, I'd call it in quote unquote, is parents don't understand what's happening in the lives of their children. Therefore, they don't know how to interpret what the symptoms that they're seeing. Therefore, maybe they're putting a bandage on something that's much deeper. Yeah.
Yeah. So parents, we are not understanding what's happening to our boys, especially boys.
Yeah.
I want us to really focus on them because we rarely have conversations about boys.
Yeah.
Now, because you're not understanding, what is the price that our boys are paying when they come to you and when you're mentoring them? What are some of the things that they're experiencing? Is it self-esteem? What are their issues at this time?
Every man at different ages, they're haunted by the question, do I have what it takes? And that question is answered from home by an authority figure they respect. If it's answered in the affirmative, then they grow up confident.
Yes.
I normally like to say that our self-portrait determines our self-conduct.
Okay.
How we perceive ourselves is how we conduct ourselves. So if I perceive myself as not having what it takes because of the kind of treatment I've received from home, then I come out to the world a very passive person. And that's something we're seeing with the boy child. We're having them, when people complain and say the girl child is taking up everything, it's because the counterparts, the boys, are being haunted by the question, do I have what it takes? And they're saying no. Why? Because dad never did this for me. I've never been given an opportunity to lead. I've never given an opportunity to make my contributions. So I could say that one of the things is that question not being answered in the affirmative from the home setting.
Yeah. So there's this fundamental question that I think what you're saying exists in masculinity in boys that is not answered. And it's not answered especially because maybe parents don't understand that questions. Maybe because we don't understand what our kids need especially our boys, and we are not there to be the role model and affirm them. And could it be also because as a father, even boys that have fathers, that question was never answered anyway for them?
Yes, I recently learned that every product, we are all products of a product.
Yes.
Therefore, if your dad was a product of a broken product,
Yes.
then he's a broken product reproducing a broken product.
Yeah.
Therefore, what people call a boyhood issue, it's really fatherhood and father wounds as a result of being raised by a broken man. You've heard of the thing, hurting people hurt people.
Yes.
So if as a man I was hurt growing up, and then I get a son, and the things I went through were never dealt with, I automatically become a father who's wounding the next generation of fathers.
Yeah.
So it's a recurring issue. Yes.
So most of these problems that we're having, or these complaints and concerns that we're having about boys or about men, it's actually a reflection of our fatherhoodness.
Yes.
And our father wounds.
Yes.
Wounds that were actually given to us by our fathers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Father wounds, would you name a few?
I'd like to maybe break them down into the stages of how men evolve and grow.
Okay.
Because there's no one size fits all father wound.
Okay.
Because the person whose dad died when they're 25 and the one who never grew up with their dad, they're having very different issues.
Okay.
So maybe I'll take you through some of the stages of how I would categorize the stages as to how men evolve. And in each stage, there's what a boy would need to help them blossom. And there's what you look out for as a red flag. And there's what you need to watch out for continually. So we'll have the nutrient, this is something you need to feed into them.
Okay.
Something you need to continually supply because of the stage they're in. And the red flag, what are you supposed to really check out and ensure that if it's happening, know that there's trouble.
It's saying something.
Yes.
It's communicating trouble.
Yes. So the first stage of masculinity.
So these are stages of masculinity.
Yes.
And in these stages, we are also going to now learn the wounds.
Yes.
The father wounds.
Yes.
That sons get from their home,
yes,
from family. Okay.
So from the very onset, we could say when a nutrient or something they need is withdrawn,
yes,
then it's an automatic wound.
Yes.
Okay. And when a nutrient is overgiven, or let me call it something they need, if it's given in excess, then it spills over into a red flag.
Yes.
For example, let's start from the onset.
Yes.
There's 6 stages, and I'll name them, then break down into how they happen. So the first stage is boyhood. Then the next stage is a superhero. Then the next one is warrior. Then lover relationship, and then king, and then sage, which is the ultimate.
All right.
At the peak of masculinity. So at boyhood stage, which is from 0 to 7 years old, a boy at that stage, the biggest need they have is the desire to be affirmed and to be accepted. And when that is withdrawn, or if they don't feel loved,
or it's not given,
if it's not given, the wound becomes rejection.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when love is given in excess, where they make a mistake and you let it pass, they end up becoming entitled.
Yeah.
So as a parent, always look out for, am I ensuring that my son feels loved? Okay. If they feel loved, are they disciplined? And if they're disciplined, I must ensure that they don't feel rejected.
Yes.
So those 3.
Yeah.
So the next stage is, I call it the warrior stage.
Okay.
The warrior stage, superhero. And the need and the nutrient, what they really desire, it's from 7 years to 14 years, is adventure. The desire to explore something. And it's at that stage where a young man begins to look for someone to look up to.
Yeah.
And if in the absence of a dad, mom becomes the automatic hero. So what mom wears, how mom speaks, how mom responds, becomes the model after which he emulates.
Yeah, because I think you had mentioned masculinity is imparted.
It's not spoken into.
Yeah.
It's imparted, the rubbing off. There's a community in Kenya, when they walk into a room, you know who they are. Right? Yes, I will not mention. We will not mention names.
All right.
Yes. So if you spend a lot of time with them, you'll walk into a different room and say, you know what? Have you been to this part of the Nairobi?
Okay.
So even with masculinity
is imparted.
Yes, if you've not spent time and rubbed off the right kind of men, you also walk into a different room and people see a certain name.
Okay.
Okay. So it's imparted. So as a parent, you become intentional in ensuring that your son is receiving the right kind of impartation by the people he's spending time with. Okay.
So this is as a mother, as a father.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Therefore, why this conversation is important, when you understand the stages, you know how to impart the right kind of values through the stages and the nutrients I'm sharing. So from 7 to 14 years, it's the superhero stage, and what the impartation that will help them grow into a real leader is adventure. So allow your son to go explore football, water skiing, all those things. As parents, let's be careful that we don't allow exploration to be pegged on career. They don't have to become a footballer to play football. Let them do it. It's an exploration. So that's the nutrient. And the ridicule becomes, the wound becomes ridicule. When they're starting off the first time, it won't come out right.
Yeah, so when we ridicule them,
yes,
we're also killing the manhood in them, the masculinity in them.
Yes.
Yeah.
The question, do I have what it takes? It's answered in the negative.
Yes.
So if they went to play a match and they lost, you don't make fun of it. Or they made a mistake while trying to do spoken word, or they tried to drive or maybe ride a bike and they fell. Allow them to say, it's okay, that's part of how people grow up.
All right.
Okay? So the red flag is, at that stage, is now being the mischief. The red flag is mischief because they're so adventurous. They're looking for every slight opportunity to take advantage of the adventure. So if you don't give them adventure, they'll come up with one.
They'll become mischievous.
Yes.
Okay.
So create the opportunities. Go, let them run and get tired. They'll come home to sleep. If they're constantly in the house, know that something is being cooked. So we have boyhood, and then the next stage is superhero. Then we get into now warrior stage.
Yes.
From 14 to 22 is when a young man, a boy, begins desiring to move from experimenting with toys into now doing the real accomplishment out here. That's why in the US, teens begin driving at 16 years old, where whoever came up with that law knew at around 16 years, you ought to have moved from home, and you can now stand on your own. And it's the same thing. As a boy gets to around 15 years old, begin to allow them to make their own decisions in a small way. Don't buy for them things they can do for themselves. Give them the money and allow them to do it for themselves. So that's the nutrient. Now the red flag becomes downplaying the desire to do it. Like, oh, apana, no. It's restriction. Restriction becomes a red flag. I mean, restriction becomes a wound to them, and the red flag becomes rowdiness. You're so energetic. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So unless you channel that energy, I like to say that meekness is strength under control. So unless you allow them to have an opportunity to express their strength in a healthy way, they'll be destructive with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the next stage becomes the lover stage, where a young man now desires to be in a relationship. Yeah. And they want to look handsome. They want to look like, I'm hot. How do I look? That's the nutrient is like acceptance and feeling like, I'm handsome and I have what it takes to win a girl's heart. And then the wound becomes a girl heartbreak. Because no one does these things the first time. That's why
so that wound is universal. Kila mtu atapata.
Yes.
This one, love.
Yes. And why this is interesting, because some years back, we were seeing kids in campus, let me call them children in campus, where a relationship ends and they kill the girl. Yes. Because there was no man around them. Yes. Because no man around them was saying, you know what, it's okay.
That is what happens in this phase of life.
Yes.
This is the journey of masculinity.
Yes.
Okay.
You tried the first time, it happened to all of us. So the wound becomes the rejection or the girl heartbreak. And then the red flag is something, a word I came up with, I call it stupidity. CUIPID, stupidity, where they're lost in this world of relationships and women. So as a man or you have a son at that stage, look out for those things. And definitely there's a girl that they're interested in. Watch out for when the relationship ends or it doesn't work out. Help them to realize it's okay the first time.
Yeah, you can also have this conversation even before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very
the
early.
awareness. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the next stage, which is at 30. So you can see that wounds can be accumulated.
Yeah.
If as a boy you never felt love, as a superhero you are never given an opportunity to try. As a warrior you're never given an opportunity to go out and explore for yourself. The first time as a lover, the first time you're interested in a girl, you were crushed.
Yes.
And mom says, what's wrong with you? You're too young. Why are you trying to do this? Do you have the money? Then the next stage, which is king, from 30 years old, you get to see what's happening in society where there's a lot of passive men.
Yeah.
Because throughout their lives, they've never had the question, do I have what it takes, being answered.
Yeah.
So at 30, when a man should be really taking leadership, and that's the nutrient. I call it altitude and ascension, like taking more territory. But because nothing happened, there was a lot of stages that were skipped. Therefore, he's passive, and that's where the wound comes in, which is repossession, because you lose. You're not doing anything as a result of that.
So they regress.
Yes, they regress.
Yeah.
Going back to now boyhood opportunities, looking for an opportunity to be affirmed every other time.
The ones that they didn't get.
Yes. Or an adventure, looking for an adventure to really very childish things that ought not to be happening at 30. You're supposed to be someone's dad, but you're still, whatever you're doing.
Catching up with whatever or overcompensating for what you didn't get.
Yes. So when you see, especially in our society, you see a lot of men, fathers in the old age, looking for affirmation. How do I look? It's a CEO in his 50s, and whenever he walks into a meeting, before he said, you have not clapped for me? Why didn't you? Can't you see I have new shoes? Because he was not affirmed. When they do a presentation, they expect everyone to say, wow, boss, that was very good. Because of the lack of the nutrient, at an earlier age, they end up surrounding themselves with yes men. Okay, so at 30, they ought to be the ones leading people and giving direction, but because they missed the previous stages, the father wound ends up really haunting them.
Okay.
So that's the nutrient is taking possession, and then the red flag is arrogance. When a man really didn't go through the stages, and finally they have a big car, they end up marrying a trophy wife. To walk around and show and showcase, I have what it takes. Look at my car, look at my house, and that's a lot of the reason why a lot of men are in debt. Trying to use things to affirm the question, do I have what it takes? Things and people.
To answer
the
question, do I have what it takes?
Yes. Okay, and then finally the last stage, which is sage. From 50 upwards, a man ought to be the nutrient they desire, the thing they need the most is acknowledgement. Where, for example, grandpa, you're about to make a decision, ask them what's your opinion concerning this. It's a desire. And like the beginning stage, also the old men, the wound they carry, or what would cause a wound, is rejection.
Yeah.
Especially for men, if you've been neglecting your family all these years, at your 50s, they don't want anything to do with you.
Yes. And now they're facing now rejection.
Yes.
Because remember, there's so many men today in our society.
Yes.
In their 30s, they did not get to the leadership position well.
Yes.
They were passive
Yes.
because of the father wounds they were carrying.
Yes.
Now, at 50 again, they are lonely.
Yes.
Because they were not a good husband or a good father. Now the mother and the kids have neglected you. So they face again the rejection that they faced. You know, it was from which age?
From 0 to 7.
Yes.
And it's interesting. I've watched an infographic where, a picture of how people evolve. And a baby used to wear a diaper, and at the very end, he's also wearing a diaper.
Yeah. It's like a full cycle.
Yes.
Circle.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you've said something very interesting. When a man becomes king, the red flag is arrogance. Because when you become a good leader, or you become a leader at 30, and you neglect your family for 25 years, when you're 55 and you're wondering why aren't my children calling, you lost them as a king. When you're 30.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it, a lot of men committing suicide because they're lonely, they've accomplished everything, but no one wants to be around them.
Yeah.
So the nutrient is acknowledgement. If you're watching this and you have an old man, sit around them, ask them questions. That's the best thing you could do for them. Knock in their history books, and they lighten up and just speak endlessly. Okay? And then the red flag for at that stage is regret. Because of missing the stages, or especially as a king. I've worked with a lot of families where you see this old man who was not able to mentor his son in the right way, and he's about to leave the scene, and he's looking around and saying, no one wants to be around me. So everything I've built will die with me. So to the sage out there who will be listening, please understand that it starts with mentorship, then transition, then succession. You don't jump from
all this and then you give succession.
Then you give someone the property, he'll invest it.
Yeah.
So when you're king, you're still getting some money up here. Please go back to your son and ensure that he feels loved. Help them grow through the stages, so that by the time they're king, you can safely hand over the property and everything that you've worked for to someone that you've worked with.
Yeah.
So the red flag and at that stage is regret. And to the people who are at that stage, I'd say that the fears of tomorrow and the regrets of yesterday are the enemies of today's happiness. That's a quote for an old man to realize I shouldn't be afraid of tomorrow, and I should not regret today. Now that, especially for those who will watch this, they'll know that there are stages that my sons are going through, and I need to be there for them.
There for them.
Yes.
Now, we realize that a lot of men have maybe these father wounds. What do they do? Because I was raised by a father who also had wounds, and the father who had wounds gave me wounds. How do I stop the cycle?
God is the great equalizer. Yeah. I too had my father wounds.
Yeah.
And what led me to actually studying all this, it's the pain I was going through, and asking and looking around, I'm like, everyone is having the same pain. Could there be a different way of doing this? So as I began to intentionally look out to God, I began to realize that He's the father I never had. And therefore, a question I normally ask when I have mentorship sessions with fathers and sons, I ask them, what would you do differently if God gave you an opportunity to be your own dad? All the questions always go back to the stage of boyhood. Okay. Like, I wish my dad spent more time with me. I wish my dad affirmed me. I've never had a man say, I wish he bought me more cars. I wish he brought me more gifts. In fact, a lot of men in rehabs and having anger issues, they always say, I wish dad was never there for me. So to answer your question, we're all wounded.
Yes.
Because I didn't invent all this. It took time and study. And then I understood my own story.
Yes.
Then when I work with families, I'm actually say, your son is 15. Please go out to Naivasha with him. Your son is 7 years old. Spend as much time as possible. Your son is 23. He's in relationships. Buy everything concerning relationships. Talk about women. Talk about sex. Your son is 30. He's become a king. Help him. Teach him how to lead people. That's the question he's asking. And even to the churches out there, unless you answer these questions that men ask through these stages, they'll find you irrelevant. So as a parent, when you know the nutrient, you know what they need, you are best able to know how to package whatever you're saying in a way that they need through their nutrients, the ears and filter of the nutrients. So to answer the question,
how
to
do
the men
they
out
get
there.
healing, the men out there? Because I think there's so many men who have wounds. I think what I'm hearing you say is there's the first thing that even before you went to God, there was acceptance that I have wounds.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. You realize there's pain that I'm having.
Yes.
And then you sort out how to heal that.
Yes.
Is there anything else they can do?
I'd say, first of all, it starts with God.
Yeah.
And then finding a man
Yeah.
with whom you can confide.
Yeah.
Don't die in isolation.
Okay.
A lot of men are dying in isolation.
Yes.
Find a man who's an image of what you want to become. Don't just find any man. Don't go just to any place and just say, talk about your problems. The next thing I'd encourage men, there are books out there.
Yeah.
The books out there. There's one called Wild at Heart by John Eldridge. I'd encourage men to really invest in his content, because that's where I learned about the stages of masculinity. So relationship with God, relationship with other men, and personal development.
Yeah.
It really helps. And also, I'd encourage them, find someone to work with.
Yeah.
You'll never lack what you give. If you become a channel of healing, you'll never lack the same healing.
Yes.
So there's always someone who needs what you have, and pass them out and say, you know what, I didn't have this growing up, but I can do it for you. That has really helped me in accelerating my healing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think they need to heal themselves first before they can start giving this to their sons? Because some of the people you're talking about, fathers today, are fathers. Does the journey begin with their healing, and then now they can support their sons better?
Yeah.
Because as we say, it hurt people.
Yeah.
I cannot still pass goodness, and yet in my heart there's a lot of hurt.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've not met a man who's strong enough to heal father wounds. Only God can do it.
Yeah.
Okay? So going back to God and saying, you know what, Lord?
Yes.
I'm hurting. Here are the wounds.
Yeah.
Father me and show me in what ways I missed the stages, and guide me on paths that will help me to become, to heal. And also, it's for me, that's why I was saying, my journey and my model of mentorship, it's a God-centric mentorship. Because I've tried to reach, when I was hurting, I was trying to reach out to men. They themselves are hurting.
Yeah.
I looked at the men that I was trying to ask them questions. I realized they don't have the answers. So for all the men, let me say this: God does not need you to be who He is, but you need God to be who you are.
Yeah.
So as men, let's stop trying to fix ourselves. Let's go back to the original plan and ask God to fix the things only He can fix, and then use us to become His channel of healing. Yeah. That's what I'd say.
And for single mothers, or for boys out here who are being raised by a mom who there's no father figure around, what would you advise? Especially the people that are available. If it is a single mom, it is a grandma, it is an auntie who is available, what would you advise them to do so that they can support this son or this boy and minimize the father wounds? Because already the fact that maybe the father is not there, it's already a wound. What can they do to minimize the negative effect of the father wound?
I'd encourage them to look in their circle.
Yeah.
And say, who in my circle is a man that I'd wish my son to emulate, and create opportunities to put your son around that man, and encourage time with that man, and it has to come from the moms, and say, go look for Uncle Peter. Uncle Peter, kuja chukua mtoto wangu, enda naye sokoni, rudi naye after some time. So that's what I'd say. And then the next thing is, speak in the affirmative. Tell your son he has what it takes. Look for every slight opportunity to give him an opportunity to lead. Tell him, pray for us today. Yeah. Go close the door for us. Let me use the word Paul. Kuja tutengeneze bulb. Unajua ni baba yetu. Because you're raising someone's dad. Yeah. Therefore treat him like one from the very onset. Okay. You're not raising someone's wife. So when he's beaten, he goes out there and he's beaten and he's crying, don't come and say me woye baba. Go out back and fight them. I have mothers, I told them, you know what? Do not allow your son to come and cry next to you when he's supposed to be a boy out there. There's a movie called Karate Kid. You've watched it?
Yeah.
Yes. So allow your son to spend time with an older male
Yeah.
who will impart to him the strength that he needs, and do not interfere with the process.
Okay.
Like my mom allowed me to stay with my uncle, and he used to give curfews on what time I should be home. When I come beyond curfew, mina lala nje the whole night.
Yeah.
And I never used to call mom. But when I used to get late, I used to go back to my mom's house and anifungulia. But when it used to be my uncle, I used to toe the line. But it helped me
Yeah.
to understand that for me to be in authority, I must be under authority. So those two things, continually speak in the affirmative, and help your son to know that he has what it takes to lead, and also give him opportunities to be around responsible men.
Yeah.
Just because he's a man doesn't make him a good example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I think this is a very great conversation. I'm glad we have had it, and I am sure that it will support one or two people out there.
Thank you.
How can people reach you if they need to be supported, if they need mentorship for their young kids?
Okay.
Yeah. How can they reach you? I'll speak to the camera.
My Twitter handle is Mentor Keith, King Mentor Keith. You can go and find me there. At Facebook, my name is Keith N. Nyambane, and on our page, or Facebook page, you have a page called Stars Mentors. You can just type your name, and number will reach back out to you, and we can pick up from there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you, guys. I hope you learned a thing or two about father wounds and raising our sons. If you liked the video, kindly also show it by action by liking it. Remember to subscribe, and also remember to press on the bell notification button so that you're notified anytime that we send out a new video. If this information can support somebody that you know, don't forget to share this with them. See you in the next video.